In this next segment, we'll begin to explore the factors that influence our ability to have a positive educational impact on our students. Learning outcomes can vary widely. We may be targeting behavioral skills, that is level 1 skills around what people can actually do. We may be targeting knowledge or level 2 conscious thought skills, what people know and what they don't know. Or we may be targeting a more ethereal, semi-conscious set of values, assumptions, beliefs, and expectations about the way the world is or should be, VABES for short. But whatever approaches we take to try to get these results, there are a number of factors that will influence our ability to get those results. The first one, of course, is the students you're trying to influence. Age groups, experience groups, are they in business? Are they making transition from one sector to another, coming out of the military, for example, going into the private sector? Who they are and what their backgrounds are will have a major influence on their ability to respond to whatever teaching experiences you design for them. So taking that into account, perhaps even obsessively, as my mentor Tony Athos would have said, contingencies beyond reason. Can you think about where they're coming from, what their state of mind is, what they understand, what they don't understand, and prepare your educational experience to be age, experience, and level appropriate for that audience. Of course, who you are is also going to make a big difference. Your assumptions about how to teach, your preferences for how you engage with people. Are you an introvert, an extrovert? Are you high energy or low energy? And how will those elements affect your students' response? You want to have an influence on them. You want to give them something that they don't now have, and the question is, how do you go about that? The setting will also make a big difference. Whether you're in a flat room, an amphitheater room, outdoors, when the weather's good, the students want to go outside. If you've got a room with windows or no windows, curtains or no curtains, good lighting, bad lighting, all of these things will have an influence on the amount of learning that comes out of the students. And then there's the institutional culture. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But the place in which you're teaching. If it's informal, it's probably not so much of an issue, but if you're teaching in a corporation or a particular university, the way that organization or university thinks about collectively how to educate people will have an influence on your ability to touch the students. And then you may be teaching in one program or another, an MBA program, an undergraduate program, a multidisciplinary program where you have perhaps less influence on what the students are getting. And how will all of these factors together influence the students and what they take away from these educational experiences? So there are then the issues of, well, okay, what kind of materials am I going to use for the students? There are a lot of options here, and we will be choosing those materials typically, although the institution may have, the setting may have an influence, and even the program may make some decisions for you before you came into a class as to what textbooks, what materials, what articles, etc., that you may be asked to use. So all of these factors along with, now here's a big one, the methodology that you employ to go about teaching your students. And the ones at the top you have perhaps less control over, in the sense that the admissions officers or the HR department are putting people into your programs. You may or may not be able to change the building, the classrooms, the history of the institution, or the history of the program, but you do have some choice over who you are and over the methodology that you pick and the kind of materials that you will provide to students in this educational experience. So I'm inviting you to think about all of these elements in concert, and that some of them you can influence, some of them you may not be able to influence, and it's important to understand, therefore, where you can have that influence and make a difference.